Well, great to see you all, and I'm really excited to do an actual live event. It's been a few now, but we're getting back in that motion. As Rajiv mentioned, I head up tech alliances at Snowflake, so all of our technology partners / ISVs. I've been at Snowflake for just over 4 years, and the good news for you is I've learned a lot, had a lot of great lessons as we built up this ecosystem of technology partners, and hopefully in the next 20 minutes or so here, I'll tell you about that journey, and hopefully there's some takeaways there and some great lessons that I learned that could be very valuable for you. A little bit about myself. I started out as a developer. I wanted to develop video games, and hopefully many of you are big video game fans in here. Instead, I started developing financial closing systems, kind of close. And you can see there that's actually my bar top arcade that I built from scratch using a Raspberry Pi for the kids. So it's sitting and collecting dust today. Then I figured, I want to get out. I like to present. I like to get the light bulb to turn on for people. So I went into sales engineering, pre-sales, role, engaging with customers. I had a lot of fun with that. And that led me to finding out about alliances and learning about the different parts of the business. And so then my journey took me into alliances at EMC and then AWS. And then I found Snowflake. And I'm very lucky to have an amazing job where I get to meet with a ton of folks, many like yourselves, build this great network, learn about cutting edge technology, and just start making a difference in terms of innovation and bringing new things to market that help customers. So day one. So many of you, all of you here, have been at startups, are at startups now, been at startups. Snowflake's not a startup anymore, but obviously 4.5 years ago, it was. And I compare your first day similar to opening a big Lego box. How many folks in here love Lego? Hopefully everybody, okay. All right, good. So you get this box and it's got an amazing picture on it. You're all excited. You're like, man, this is gonna be amazing. And this I haven't opened this one yet, by the way. It's been sitting in the closet for 3 years. I have to. I'm like, great. And then you open it up and you put it on the floor and it's a bunch of pieces. And you realize very quickly that it's gonna be a lot of work. There's nothing built yet. It looks amazing on the outside, nothing built yet. Probably some pieces are missing, and so it's up to you to start building it. It's gonna take some work. And let's start with a few sections at a time. So first day, I get to the office. I'm looking through, meeting folks, obviously, meeting the different leaders, the different folks. I've got one person that's reporting to me, young man, brilliant. But I quickly realized we have a lot of work ahead of us. There's a lot of amazing partners that want to partner with Snowflake. We've got a team of 2, including myself. And there's no real prioritization. And I think this is probably a common story across many of you that have built up partner ecosystems. And so how do you get scrappy? What do we do? How do we start to think about how we prioritize? How do we think about which partners are actually truly valuable and have been important to the business, and which ones we still need to help get to that point? And from day one, the big mission is let's make partners successful. Let's make partners happy. Let's make sure we're building relationships that benefit both of our businesses, and that the partners themselves find the partnership mutually beneficial and have fun along the way. So from an ISV perspective, it all starts with an amazing product innovation, right? And I think when I started Snowflake, I noticed very quickly that we had all these great partners that were just plugging in, creating integrations, and the way they did it, there was no standard, there was no consistency. They would just go read our documentation, plug in, and it started to impact customers, right? Customer satisfaction, we were starting to see in the field that, wow, we have a lot of great partnerships, but customers are complaining. Hey, this doesn't work. Hey, this is slow. So the first step was, can we come up with something to guide partners with, some best practices guide? We had a best practices guide for customers. We had nothing around partners. How do they integrate? So quickly working with our SE team, we came up with something simple, first version. And as we evolved, we quickly determined that there's some of these technologies are very comprehensive, very sophisticated. We're going to need to figure out how do we make sure that partners are following those best practices, and how do we make sure customers can feel confident of the joint solutions we're building, that they can use them and they can get ease of use, performance, security, all those things that they're looking for. So the next step was to build some kind of certification program. We actually used the word validation. I think certification has some interesting responsibilities associated with it. But using either internal or third party, we chose to use a third party at the time, still to this day, to walk partners through how do they make sure that they're following those best practices, someone to test, to scale the testing so that it's ensured that whatever we build will scale from the smallest customers to the largest customers. The next thing I learned were it's critical to have your technical liaison, your partner SE. Luckily, we already started to build that part of the business out. We had one gentleman that was starting to engage with all of our partners, starting to teach them, number one, like why is Snowflake a differentiating technology? Why should you partner from those architectural differentiators? But also, how do they follow the best practices? What's the quickest path to get something out the door into production? And then the final thing that I learned was you want a liaison that is part of the product team, that starts to understand partners, that is in your cadence calls, because as these tech partners are plugging in, they need to understand the roadmap. They need to understand what features you're building. When you get big enough, there's competitive things that you need to understand. What are we building that could be viewed competitively that we have to make sure that we get ahead of so partners feel that this is an opportunity, not something that is an overlap. So product, key. Next thing is, I talked about prioritization. It was crazy because we had no rhyme or reason how we picked certain partners for joint activities, right, or enablement. And we didn't have a partner program yet at that time. So the thought was, let's at least lay things out internally in a document. Okay, what are the requirements we look for? What can we give in return if they meet these requirements? And we came up with what I call a soft program. Right? Nothing was public, nothing was on the website, but we started to communicate internally of how we're going to measure partners and how we're going to prioritize and tier internally. And that worked really well in terms of people understanding what's important to the business and how we start to up-level partnerships. And then the partners understood. You start to get transparent. It's less subjectivity, which is always the challenge we all have, right? When we work with partners, and some partners like, how come I did not get a chance to participate in last week's roadshow? When you have clear business drivers and KPIs, it's a much easier conversation. Hey, next time we just need to hit, this number of joint customers or this many deal registrations or whatever it is that KPIs that matter to your business. Keep it simple. So the first draft that I had of this soft program had, I think, a good half dozen requirements and half dozen benefits, and quickly we determined that's way too many. We've got to cut it down. Funny enough, as we matured, we brought in professionals who ran programs before, and we launched our official program. That's the other thing I would say is, you could try to do it yourself. If you don't know how to build programs, it's tough, and this is why the soft program works really well. Then you bring in a professional that actually builds out a whole program. So they took a look and said, version 1, let's cut these down. Even as we cut down things from our soft program, our official program launched with only a handful, actually 3 requirements and a few benefits. And that made it simple, and that launched out the door. Yes, the bar was a little lower, but then you were able to learn and tune on the way. And then be data-driven. This is probably redundant, but the way that how could you meet these KPIs if you don't have the right data points? Like joint customers is a great example. We are lucky enough that we use our own technology internally and capture all the connectivity data across our customers to know what tools and technologies customers are using. And in essence, we can capture the joint customers. We know exactly how many joint customers there are in real time. Right? Now, pipeline is a different story. Salesforce is always interesting in how you can track. But at least in real time, we were able to capture that. And the key is just feed it back into the system. We can tell partners, look, let's go get more wins together because we can track it. We have the data, and that's how we're going to measure you. Just as a further point here, today, this is how we measure partners, right? Still simple, 5 main KPIs, right? Joint customer growth. Are we still winning deals together? Are customers excited? And is the joint solution in demand? We are a platform that charges customers on compute and storage, and so the more that partners can optimize to the platform, the more it's going to drive consumption. So we also measure consumption. We have different features, functionality right across 6 different feature sets. Our partners plugging in there to drive awareness and excitement and new use cases across those product integrations. Logos, especially referenceable logos, are gold that you can feed into the field, wind wires, et cetera. Case studies, so customer references are as big as you grow, especially now that we're in the industry. We pivoted to industry solutions. I'll talk about that in a second. You want to show that you have credibility through the customer evidence, through customer references, through case studies, et cetera. And then finally, this is a new one for us, industry solutions. We've pivoted this year from selling a great technology to having to figure out how to make sure that you map it to the business outcome. As you get up into the enterprise, C-level folks who care less how amazing your shiny object is. They want to know how you're actually solving business problems. And so we've shifted to talking about use cases. How do we solve specific use cases in specific verticals? Partners are huge help here because a lot of them are much more mature than we are. How do we leverage that maturity in building industry solutions? So we're starting to talk to partners like, we're going to build industry solutions. We can start with some marketing assets, but let's get you also in the motion of talking about use cases versus amazing reference architectures and speeds and feeds. All right, scale smart. So as I mentioned, we started with 2 folks. And as we were starting to get headcount across the whole alliances organization, we were trying to determine where do we best invest that. Right? We're not getting a lot of headcount right away. You know, you feed into the business and you have to prove back that the business is growing so you get more headcount. Do you do it as more BD resources? Do you do it as more technical partner SE resources, solutions architects? Do you do it in operations? And how much can you automate so you can go a little longer without having to fill certain spots? For instance, onboarding partners was manual, and then we created a portal, so as simple as a website portal. This is before we launched the official program. Now we have a true, mature, optimal partner network portal. But in the old days, we just created a simple website, a simple form where partners can sign up, and then at least it eliminates a few steps of the process. And for us, where we invested was partner ops. This was the biggest weakness. Someone that could go help us dig through the data, someone that can go help us track down the amount of pipeline we're doing, the partners and all of those KPIs I talked about, someone to just get us more formal, more organized. So this was the biggest bang for the buck for us. And it just depends on your business, what's going to make sense. Maximize enablement. So many of you deal with this every day. You have a lot of partners that want to position their technology and tell you how amazing that technology is going to be and how it can drive more business, more consumption for us. And we have a sales force that is already inundated with a whole bunch of having to drive a certain amount of business. They have these big numbers that they have to go and meet. And then all of our partners across many facets of technology want to teach, so they can hopefully get some of our reps and SEs to be able to position the joint solution. How do you maximize that? You have limited timeshare in the mind of a rep or an SE. How do you make sure you're prioritizing? Again, back to prioritization. You're getting the right partners. They've invested. They're doing the work. One of the things that we unlock is getting access to the field and getting access to customers as well, right, with joint marketing. We started to create a template. Like if you're going to talk to our teams, don't just talk about the product. Let's talk through a customer lens. Let's talk about the business value. You have to get it a referenceable logo, or at least internal logo we can talk about. We can anonymize it publicly. And then make sure like it's through through the lens of the customer view. And then there's some calls to action. And then even homework, I didn't put it on here, but even before we set up Enable, we started getting smart and say, let's do some homework. Even on our teams, our reps, we're going to give you a great partner on your weekly enablement call. Here is the joint solution. Here's the solution brief that we've prepared. Here's the opportunity. Think of 5 of your accounts in your patch that could benefit from this. And then we do the enablement, and then we figure out of those 5, which ones should we start with. Where we are today, so again, now we have this very expansive network called the Snowflake Partner Network, SPN. Like I said, we brought in some professionals. We have a whole programs team now. So we've gone from, when I joined, 7 alliances folks to about 113 now. Just on the ISV team alone, we have about 10 folks. And that just, it's evidence of growing this ecosystem, showing the value back to the business. The Snowflake Partner Network has a full portal. It has an automated enablement for the long tail of partners, demand center, so they can do some demand gen activities. It's got a full training module. It has deal registration. So we're able to scale now to hundreds of partners, and also have a tiering system that determines which partners are the most valuable based on those KPIs we have. So we've come a long way, a lot of hard work, and a lot of lessons learned. I put a ski lift on there. I don't know how many of you are skiers, but it's always interesting. You go down a run, and then you can think about it on your way back up the ski lift, and you're like, man, that was a great one, or why did I wipe out 5 times in the last one? Let me think about how to adjust. So as I think through this to help all of you here, these are some of the lessons learned. I have many, but one of the big ones was saying no. I think we all struggle with saying no. I know I did. I don't as much anymore now. I actually enjoy saying no to a degree. Must be some sadistic part of me coming out. So you have partners that want to do more with you, and you only have a handful of opportunities. How do you get better saying no? Not only saying no though, give them steps. Like instead of saying no, saying not right now, but if we achieve X, Y, and Z, then we'll be very well positioned to do that next, right? I want to get into your corporate events. Well, we only have 5 slots, and we don't have enough joint customers. Let's put a plan together to get there. We're going to do this event again in 6 months or next year, right? This was fail fast, very overused, but still very true. I'm a very stubborn person, so sometimes I like to, this version of the program is going to be the one we use, and we haven't done it right the first time. Sometimes you just want to make sure you're going to make the wrong decisions a lot, which is great. That's how we learn. That's how we improve. Just being able to know when to take a different route is key, and it's different for everyone. But I think just the ability to say, look, we tried this. It's okay to suck up a little ego sometimes and just go try a different route. Keep it simple. We overcomplicate. As I mentioned, the first partner program, I tried to make it so elaborate, and I'm like, this isn't going to work. Or even best practices guide. The best practice guide we put together, we were trying to figure out all of our different architectural areas that we can have partners improve. Instead, we said, where are customers failing right now? Let's just pick the 2 or 3, and that'll be version 1. And then we can go back to version 2 and continue to update. Feedback is gold. So the first 3 months, when you build your 30, 60, 90-day plan, I just interviewed people left and right. I interviewed the internal folks on the partner team, obviously. I interviewed the sales teams and the sales leaders to figure out what's working well, what's not. I shadowed customer calls, and I talked to customers to see what do they need, what are the gaps, what are the white spaces, what do they like about partners' solutions on top of Snowflake, and what are they struggling with? And obviously, partners, get feedback from existing partners, like what's working well? What do you want in a program? What are we doing well? What are we not doing so well? Consistency, again, like I said, we try to stay away from being subjective, and as you prioritize, you want to make sure that you have clear measurements and KPIs, so partners feel that that it's fair. If they're not your top level partners, they understand why, they understand what they need to do to get there. That took a little tuning because the other big lesson learned is you come in and you have a marketing team and you have obviously the alliances team, you have a product team, and in the beginning those were all siloed, and so the product team had some favorites in terms of partners that they thought were really instrumental for Snowflake. Same thing with the marketing team, and then the alliance team. I'm like, well, as I'm putting on paper, these are not all matching. So I think getting all those groups together and removing silos and saying, look, this is a program. This is what we did. We said, this is a program. We need everyone to follow it in terms of KPIs and give us feedback. Are there KPIs we're missing? But we want to make sure it's consistent, and we have this forum across all the groups. And finally, we did. And it became much easier to be consistent and not be subjective. And it's the same partners that you position across the different parts of the organization. And then lastly, just have energy and be passionate. And this is why I think we're all here and we all love working with partners. Be passionate because the partners will feed off that. And they'll want to do more with you. And as will salespeople too, right? I think you're trying to convince your sales teams why they should work with a partner. They'll feed off your energy. So with that, thank you. Hopefully that was helpful. Learn a little bit. Should we open up for Q&A?
Yeah. Thanks a lot, Tarek. And we want to open it up for Q&A. And As expected, a lot of questions.
Thank you.
Hi.
Laura with Motorola Solutions. I have a question about something you mentioned. I saw that you have a partner SE role.
Partner SE, yes.
So I'm really curious to hear more about that. I know, for us, staffing developer support is always a challenge. And so I'm curious to know, where that person sits within your organization. And then what's their role when it comes to partners? Is it more of like a technical support, onboarding? What do they do?
Yeah, great question. Today, and even from day one, our partner SE organization rolls into our global SE organization. And there's some pros and cons to that, not rolling into alliances. What we did first is we pulled one of our top rockstar SEs that wanted to do something new. They had been in Snowflake already for, I think, 2 years at that time. And where we struggled, we said, look, we're struggling. We were pulling this person in anyway for a lot of partner engagements. And we decided to create a formal role. We got the green light from the leader, the global SE leader. And we started with one. Since that time, we've grown into a team of about, I want to say it's 50, 60 strong, because they support our SI. So I have the technology alliances. Our partner organization is split up into our channel, our SIs, our GSIs, our RSIs. Then we have our cloud partnerships, AWS, Azure, and GCP, and then the tech alliances. And then we created another motion, which is called Powered by Snowflake. And those are companies that develop their product on top of Snowflake as a backend, like customers. They were customers that also have a product that we could go to market with together. And so we created Powered by Snowflake. So the SE organization now also segments in that same fashion. But so we got them initially we got it from our global SE organization. And then the responsibilities are really around working with the partners on creating the integration if they haven't already, right? Creating the initial integration, following best practices, plugging into, making sure that they're educating them on our roadmap. What's our vision from a product perspective, so they can figure out ways to plug in and differentiate in the market with. I can talk about some of it. So external tables is a way that you can query data outside of Snowflake. Well, there's some partners already working on data lakes. Can we partner together? Okay, but if they don't know, they're not going to think about it, and they're not going to prioritize on the roadmap. So the partner SE does education around roadmap. They handle integration. They handle customer issues with our joint solution in the field. So they get on calls to troubleshoot. And then they do a lot of go-to-market things around like virtual hands-on labs, like demos, virtual hands-on labs, white papers, blogs. So that's the roles and responsibilities. That covers most of what our partner SE organization does.
Thank you, Tarek. Next question.
Yes.
Thanks for the presentation. A quick
Thank you.
question. Amongst all the partners that you have, how do you, can you describe a partner that's been really successful with Snowflake, the do's and the don'ts beyond just customer references? Because there's always going to be that start point where you're starting and you will start with 0 customers. But then what are the do's and don'ts to reach to that state where you see partner to be really successful?
Yeah, I think, and it's evolved a little bit. So when we started off, we had a pure land and expand strategy, just like many startups do. Like, you need logos, and so it's all about landing, especially big enterprises. You're not going to go after the enterprise data warehouse right away. You're going to go after a periphery thing with a business unit that's setting up a data lake somewhere, as an example. And they have autonomy, and they don't need IT yet. And then you win. Then you slowly make your way into IT. So we needed more logos, and we needed to figure out how to position Snowflake across many customers that were not familiar with Snowflake at that time. So we leveraged partners that were very scrappy. I use the word scrappy up here, and would just jump all over our sales teams. Like, how can I help you? Like, I'd love to bring you in this account. Love to bring you in that account. And our sales teams jumped all over that, and they would start to bring them into additional accounts and reciprocate. So I think just the eagerness to partner and build relationships in the field. Where it doesn't work are some partners that just wait for opportunities to come to them, right? And I think we've all seen this. So our best partners are the ones that are very aggressive and go out and build relationships in the field and don't wait for a corporate push down. They're like, let's just go grassroots, build something in the field. And then that starts to make our job easier, because then the reps and their leaders are coming back to us and saying, we've seen some great momentum here. Can you start educating us at a corporate level, for instance? The other thing, marketing maturity. I think executing, getting creative, that's the other thing. Coming up, again, a lot of partners will say, what are you guys doing in the next 6 months from a marketing perspective? We just want to plug into events. Like, well, why don't you get creative and we'll invest too. Come up with an interesting marketing plan. So just the being creative, being very proactive around building relationships in our field, those are the things that work really well. As we're evolving to industry, obviously we're looking at folks that know how to talk the talk, like can talk use cases in healthcare and life, in financial services, et cetera. But that eagerness to come with some ideas is always going to allow that partner to bubble up with us. Creative, right? Think outside the box. Just because we have this event doesn't mean like we have a format. Doesn't mean we have to always follow it. I shouldn't say I gotta be careful there, but like, hey, you get creative or do a field. A lot of partners also wait for corporate marketing events, and we have a whole field marketing team. We're like, go build relationship, because you build a relationship with the field. They're going to go ask their field marketing team to come up with something, and then you get creative and come up with an idea, and all of a sudden you've got a demand gen activity there. Wow, we didn't have that before. How did you do that? You got creative. You're welcome.
In the interest of time, we'll take one more question, and post that I'm sure Tarek is going to be available to take more questions offline.
Yeah, definitely.
I hope that works.
I'll be around for a little bit, so.
Okay. Yeah. Go on.
Yes.
Do you have a dedicated partner engineering team that manage the integrations with technology partners?
It's interesting you bring that up. So we do have a dedicated PM that his role is PM of ecosystem. So he handles mainly the drivers. So we are a database under the covers, right? A relational database. And so the way that partners plug into us is either through a set of drivers, and we publish the drivers, and then we have an engineering team that develops them. We develop and publish them. So there is a PM that's responsible for the ecosystem, and they handle the drivers, they handle performance on the drivers, they handle best ways to integrate. They were responsible for helping create the certification program, and very valuable in helping the best practice. So yes, we did have a dedicated person from engineering that was a PM of ecosystem. Critical role, yeah.